Your energy is trying to up level, but you are not allowing it. And therefore, your manifestations are taking longer than you hoped and expected. Welcome to today's podcast episode of Soul Led Living. I'm going to share 7 messages about how you can shift your energy to the next level so that you can change your life. But first, you need to know that you're the only one that can create this change. If you are living an energy 7, your life is going to be a reflection of a 7. But if you want a 10 and you're living a 7, there's just no way to have that life that is a 10. And my feeling is that you're calling in a level 10 life, but there is some sort of block that's happening where that life is not really coming forward. So that's what today's episode is about. We're going to give some practical tips and something that you can actually do. But like always, I'm going to share those 7 messages, but I want you to really use your heart and your ears to hear what truly is for you. Not all of them are going to be for you, but there are going to be some that are like, yes, you absolutely need to do this to make space for this up level that is coming so that you can really live that life that you know you're meant to be living. And all that work that you're doing, you might be like spinning your wheels right now and kind of wondering like why the shift hasn't happened or why it's taking so long. These 7 messages are here for you because believe me, the divine wants that shift to happen, but you got to help a sister out. It's like, help me, help you. We're trying to open up some space so that the shift can actually come in. So let's go into today's 7 messages. Message number 1. There's a need to look at your space. And I'm not really talking about organization. I'm talking more about a maturity. It actually reminds me of when my daughter was moving from tween to teen. And she had that very tween room. Remember that color that was in for a while that was like a teal green? It was like almost like a fluorescent green. And this was like her tween color, and her bedspread was pink, and she had all the Taylor Swift. And ultimately, she starts getting to high school, and around freshman, sophomore year, she does not want any color. She wants to take away that color. She wants to do more of she was doing more like a modern farmhouse chic look. And, she was just really like up leveling for her space in her room to really represent like who she was and who this, young woman that she was becoming. So that's what I feel about this. Like, I feel almost like the space that you exist in, and maybe this is a workspace, this could be your home, this could be your room, it could be just one room in the home, but it makes me feel like, does this room really represent who you are trying to become? Or does this house represent who you're trying to become? Like if I walked into your house, would I be like, oh, a very scattered person who doesn't know what they want in their life lives here? Or I'm like, oh, there's an artist that lives here and she happens to be a mom as well. So there's something about the space that wants to mature, and it's actually going to really support that shift because we are like these little plants that like we can't help but shift into our environment. So if the environment is shifted for us, like we will ultimately shift. So this is really here to help us. And again, organizing is great and getting rid of stuff is great. You may even have to look at the different things that are out and about. So like maybe there's a jewelry box or a picture frame or some clothes of your ex-boyfriend that you still wear, right? Like almost looking at the energy of the things that are out and does that energy represent where you're going? Does it feel like an up-leveled energy? And that would be more of the purging and the organizing and putting that away. But overall, this feels like, what story does this space tell? And does this space like really represent where you're going? Funny enough, in my office, when Benny was making me a new office, because I used to work out of a she shed because when we were building our house, there was no space for me in our little house that we were living in where I could have my office. So Benny literally made me an office out of a shed. So I would walk every day to my shed. I loved my shed. It always felt like a little like witch's shed in the middle of the forest amongst all these trees. So it was a really fun place, but it was definitely like, talk about hiding. It was the epitome of hiding because people would drive by and just think it's a shed, but really inside it was like where I was doing all my readings and where I was doing all my teachings. And I remember when we had moved into the new house, Benny was like, it is time to go to the new house and you need to like have an office in the new house. And I was like, do I really? Like, I'm okay with my little shed. And he's like, Nikki, we have to. Like, that was the plan. So he starts working on my office, which is in like the attic part of our house. And he's like, okay, like, what's the vision? And I'm like, I don't know. I really feel like this needs to be a studio. Like, I don't even want to call it an office. I want to call it a studio. And funny enough, as he starts creating the office and this space like really starts to look like a studio, I mean, it is by no means where it's like meant to be, but that idea of like calling my space a studio created so much change in my business. It's actually what got me to start doing the podcast. I actually got like a nicer camera and I started doing more videos and it really shift content. Like basically I brought content into my business in a way that I didn't bring before. And it was just more true to who I wanted to be. Like I wanted to move out of just doing one-on-ones and being hiding and like kind of like people only knowing me on a one-on-one basis, which is definitely what my lovely little she shed was about. But then this office really expanded me. And it was something that I kind of wasn't ready for it when Benny was ready, making it for me. Like he was the one that was trying to push me towards. I was not ready to be that person or to be that business owner. But as we set that intention for the space, I became that and I'm still becoming that. So that's what this feels like to me. It is a maturing of your space. So I wouldn't focus so much on organizing and purging, which that's going to come with it. But really your space is going to help you by having a vision for who really lives here. Like if you were writing a story, who lives here? Is it an artist? Is it a boss babe? Is it a person who is like ready for love? Like what does this space like truly represent? And that is going to shift your energy in a big way. Message number 2, the heart wants to soften. And I know we've all heard that concept that vulnerability is bravery and like the strongest thing, we can do is be vulnerable. But what does that really mean? That's my question. And what I mean by softening is that your heart is really right now being underused. It's being used to protect yourself rather than to bring in what is for you. Because the heart is really, I think about the heart as the heart center. So the heart chakra, it's a green center in between your lungs. And this heart can be used to bring things towards us and kind of like expand our love and really like create our lives. Or it could be used for our sensitivities and it'll kind of close down and it will function as like a bodyguard and kind of protect us from the things that we're scared of. It kind of protects us from the sensitivities that we have. And your heart looks like, like it's great. It's got you here and there was probably a reason to protect yourself. And there's nothing wrong with the fact that you've been protecting yourself from something. But it just looks like where you're trying to shift into, again, moving from a 7 to a 10, the 10 really requires you to stop protecting yourself. Actually, I really feel like protection is like the number one reason why you don't have what you've been dreaming of. So it's a really big deal. And okay, on a practical level, how do we do that? And I think the first thing, honestly, is to start to become aware of the fact that a lot of the steps you're taking, especially in the stuff that you are wanting to change, like, so maybe it's your love life, maybe it's your work life, a lot of the steps that you're taking in that category are out of protection. And of course, like, we're so sneaky about not letting ourselves seem weak. So we may think like, oh no, I'm taking these steps because this is what I have to do, or I'm taking these steps because this is like the strongest way to be or whatever. But you're actually taking those steps out of protection, protecting yourself from something that you're afraid of. So the first step is to actually like become aware of the fact that you are protecting yourself. Like it's a type of honesty that is needed. And imagine like you're trying to create something, but something is being hidden from you. Do you ever feel that way? That you're like, okay, I'm trying to move forward. I'm trying to make this thing happen, but I feel like I'm missing something, like something is being hidden. And it's like, yeah, because you are having a dishonest relationship with yourself in this category. And you don't mean to, you're not a bad person. It's just that we are protecting ourselves from even knowing the truth. So that's why the heart is like, your heart is so soft and beautiful, and it has like this shell around it right now that doesn't allow yourself to see the truth. So what I would do is I would spend about 3 to 4 times a week doing a little bit of breath work, because the breath work really like softens the heart. So you can go on YouTube. I personally love Erica, Evolved by Erica, for breath work, and hopefully we'll have her on the show soon. I've been on her show before. and really just kind of soften that chest, and you'll feel it. Like you will feel your chest start to soften. And then as soon as you're done with that, go run to your journal and start asking yourself those questions. Like, what am I afraid of? What am I protecting myself from? What is my heart trying to protect myself from? Like, what is it that I'm trying to avoid? If you don't like breath work, any sort of like really physical activity, it could be like you go for a run, like something that gets the heart going so that you get out of your head and you kind of just break through all that, anxious energy that blocks us. So any sort of hard activity is fine. It could be like a strong walk or a strong, run or some workout class, but breath work is just easier. Honestly, you can do 10 minutes of it and open up that center and start to ask yourself those questions. And that is gold. I honestly feel that I'm giving you a lot of messages, but this feels like it is going to give you the most bang for your buck. Like it makes me feel like most of the problem is here. And this is why, because you can take all the steps, but something's being hidden. Like somebody is lying to you, and it's yourself. So yeah, be open to meeting your heart, softening. Other messages here is about like maybe the relationships that you're in, like makes me feel like people are trying to help you, people are trying to support you, and that there's just too strong of a wall to actually get the love from other people. This was happening to me the other day. I have a new coach who was messaging me. I was messaging her, and then she messages me back, and she says something really beautiful to me and about what I'm doing. And instantly my brain was like, oh, she's just saying that, whatever. She's just trying to blow steam up my ass because like, almost like she's trying to butter me up or something. And I was like, no, that is not true. Like she loves me. She's trying to help me. Like let her help you, Nikki. Like let your heart be open, like be vulnerable enough to receive help. So there's a softness trying to come. And then the third message I got from this one was a softness towards yourself. So you may have been treating yourself like really strong. You might be like, okay, like let's get our shit together, and kind of being that sergeant mother. And I'm just getting that sergeant mother doesn't work for you. It's like every child has a different needs a different parent. Like I might have 3 kids and all 3 of those kids might need like different parents, but I'm just getting that your heart does not need the sergeant mom. She really needs like a balanced, compassionate mom. And to just take a minute to be like, wow, you're doing amazing. You're doing so much. You have so much on your plate. You're killing it. You've done all this already before. I'm so proud of you. And yeah, I know it's hard. There's still more, but you're going to do it. But I almost feel like without being able to love on yourself and see what you have already done, what you have already accomplished, this pushing and not and there's just like no heart in the way you're parenting yourself. So you just can't get to where you're trying to go. So there's just so much potential here in the heart center that is just really going to make a big difference. And the practical way of doing it, again, is those exercises 3 to 4 times a week and just sitting with yourself and talking to that heart and letting that heart open up. Also, anything that you can eat that's green, actually greens really open up the heart as well. So I know, I just told you to eat your spinach, but yes, it will help. Message number 3, in order to create this shift, you really need to empty your mind daily. And listen, I know that those of you who are listening are super smart, you're intelligent, your mind works amazing, and that mind has gotten you here. Like your strategy, your thoughts, your kind of way of moving through the world has gotten you to where you're going. The problem is that if you're living that, 7 life and you're trying to get into that 10 life, it's not going to come from your smarts. It's going to come from higher consciousness. So you kind of have to think that like you're an athlete and you're at the top of your game, like you're already killing it, but you still need a little bit of an edge because you want to get ahead. Where does that edge come from? It's going to come from something different. Like it's going to come from like a new way of training. It's going to come from some sort of new technology, some new innovation, right? That's like sometimes like you're an athlete and then you move into spirituality, let's say, because that's going to up level you or whatever. So in this case, like I really see that your smarts in a way are kind of getting in the way because you're depending on it too heavily. So that daily emptying is basically sitting in meditation and really imagining that you're like a vase, like a vessel. and that you are trying to allow this like wave of white light, or like a waterfall of white divine light coming through, and just you're going to empty your mind, and you're not going to believe every thought that comes in, because it just looks like there's just too much dependency on these thoughts. And this shift actually comes from a divine intervention. Like, it almost makes me feel like it comes from a download, like honestly a message, and there is higher knowledge and wisdom than just that monkey brain, like the things that you know. So to up level yourself, and this should be more fun, like almost, oh, what else can I receive without having to like get it from a book or get it from watching a YouTube video. Like it doesn't feel like anybody is really going to be able to give you new information. This new information truly comes from source. Like it is from source energy. And there are these like old thoughts and kind of programmings that are really serving as bodyguards. They're serving as like very strong guards. They're trying to, just be like, nope, we're in charge. We're in control. Like, we don't need any new people here. It's like the old regime is like trying to not let this queen get new information. And the new information is coming, honestly, spiritually. It's coming from a download, but you're being held back by these old guards that, obviously are there to protect you, but they're not letting this new information come in. Because remember that you're moving into a place that's very visionary. Like it hasn't really been done before, or it hasn't been done this way. And it's not going to come from old blueprints, from other ways, from information. It's going to come more from this download type feeling. So I also feel like kind of not doing so much content of how-tos, like you're literally listening to a how-to. I understand the irony of that, but I mean like maybe I don't know, 6 ways to make your YouTube video go further or something. I mean, it's fine to bring that in, of course, but it feels like that's not where the answer is fully going to come from. Like it is helpful to have that masculine structure of, okay, like this is how things are done, but it does feel like you're going to get this download that basically adds to the knowledge maybe that you're getting as well. So not just receiving that content, but also making space in meditation to let this come through. And also noticing if there's any thoughts that are keeping you small. So the tricky thing about these thoughts is that they're not bad, like they're not toxic thoughts or thoughts that like seem bad. They're just thoughts that are keeping you small. So, and they're just keeping you whatever the opposite of creative is, The other day I was talking to my husband about something with my work, and I was like, oh no, but like I'm going to do it this way. And he's like, but why? There's so many other ways you can do it. I'm like, well, this is just the way it's done, Benny. Like, and I was talking about my industry. I'm like, this is how you do it in the industry. He's like, that seems weird. There's so many other ways. So it's like this thought of mine was just, it's not neither good nor bad. It's just a little bit closed-minded. And it wasn't letting me see something more visionary that actually Benny was able to see because he was out of the system, which is actually why I love like being out of these dogmas. Like that's why it's hard for me to like be part of a church or even like study, I don't know, therapy or something, because I love to stay as open-minded as I can. But it doesn't matter. You end up becoming dogmatic to something at some point. So it's almost like releasing any dogmas that you might have, any teams that you subscribe to, like any group thinking that you're subscribing to, letting that go a little bit, because something really exciting and informative is trying to come through, but it's only going to come from this emptying. And it really seems like it comes from meditation. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day of just closing your eyes, focusing on your breath, and just really trying to let those thoughts just be light, like letting them leave and picturing that white light coming through, like just you're under a waterfall. You're under a waterfall, and just getting used to emptying out the mind. Message number 4. This up level, this shift comes from changing your words. I know this sounds so silly, and we don't even recognize like how we speak or our tone or anything like that. But this seems like it's just going to change your life. So again, similar to that space concept that we were like, okay, what should this space look like for this type of woman? Like she's not a princess, now she's a queen. What does the space look like? Also, your words look like they're going to add up to this. They're going to do the same thing. So I was thinking about when I first moved to LA, I was an assistant to the vice president of publicity. Actually, I think she became the president of publicity and marketing. And I remember right away when I got there and I was like answering her phone calls, I was like, holy shit, this Miami accent is just not going to work for you, Nikki. Like, this is not going to get you anywhere. So I remember kind of doing my best to change my accent. I wonder if you guys can still hear it. I'm sure some of you can when I speak fast. But I really worked to change that accent and just neutralize it. At first, it's a little sad because you're like, oh, I'm trying to hide myself. But I wasn't trying to hide myself. I was trying to give myself more opportunity. And if I spoke a certain way, people might not have given me the opportunities that I wanted, believe it or not. And that changed a lot for me. And even I remember coming home, people being like, whoa, your like accent has changed. I'm like, yeah, that was on purpose because I needed to widen up, like, be able to connect to more people. So sometimes it's the tone in which that we speak, or like the words that we say that are maybe telling of our age. Also, sometimes like maybe I'm a Gen Z and I say these words and it just kind of keeps me there. And I feel like those words are fine if it's working for you. But if you're seeing that where you're trying to go needs other words or needs like another tone so that you could be more, you could just give yourself more opportunity. That's what this feels like, giving yourself more opportunity. Also, of course, the words feel more clear. They feel stronger. There's just a, I'm feeling a little insecure because as I'm talking about words, I'm like feeling my own words. But there's just like a strength in the words that are going to come through. And this is also something that without having to really, sit in meditation or figure out how to shift your energy, it's funny, like your words are going to shift your energy in a big way. So if you're writing, if you're speaking, and not to be, I don't feel like there's a good and bad word. It just feels like the words have to match where you're going. So if you want to be seen as an artist and you're still writing like a doctor, let's say, then those doctor words are just not going to help you become that artist. So if you were an artist, what words would you be using? And not to kind of fake it till you make it, but really allow yourself, especially when you know you're being called to a different expression of yourself, trust that that expression, even though it might look like a change, it's really just an expansion of who you truly are, right? It's not like I was changing Nikki Novo. It was just, I was allowing myself to expand more fully, and that's truly who I am. Like God was calling me to do that. I wasn't embarrassed about where I came from. I just knew that I was somebody who wanted more in life. So I was using my language to expand my possibilities and give myself more. So this feels like you're choosing this, like you're choosing how these words are going to be different because they're going to be part of the character that you are becoming, basically. And you know what I love about the word change and the tone change? It's actually a sign of self-worth. I was getting that as you change the tone, change the words, become more clear, whatever you're getting from this message, what you're saying is I deserve more by doing that. And really that story that I'm telling you about when I changed the way I spoke in LA, it was like I deserve more. And there's something about language and your voice and your words that give you more. It may even mean like learning a language perhaps, but there's something in the word that is going to match to what you deserve. So somebody that has everything that you want in that life, number 10, how are they expressing themselves? What words are they using? What tone do they have? How are they sharing? And listen, for some of you, it may be she's very strong, she's very clear, she's very direct. And some of you may be like, she's very soft, she's very in her heart, she's expressing her emotions, right? There is not black or white. I need you to feel into what is true for you here. But when you shift your words, you are going to receive what you're finally worthy of, or what you've always been worthy of. Let me say that correctly. You are worthy of something, and your words are keeping you from what you deserve. For message number 5, I was getting stop over promising, and whatever you actually do promise, do what you promised. I think another way of looking at this is integrity. Be in your integrity. And the reason for having these on opposite sides of the spectrum is that the overpromising is creating a life about others. And I don't mean like the good way where you're like, oh, I'm, in service to others. This is about trying to please others. It feels very anxious to me. Like you do it out of fear almost. Like you overpromise things out of anxiety, out of feeling anxious, out of trying to take care of other people's emotions before yourself. It's that people pleaser within you. And it is causing so much mess. And it's like every time you do it, there's this recovery process after, and then you start all over again. So really stopping yourself from over-promising. And let's talk about like maybe why you're over-promising. The over-promising looks like you just think people are not going to love you if you don't. I know. It's so basic, like little kid stuff, right? But it's really true. Like we do it because there's just a part of us that thinks we're not going to be loved and we're not going to be accepted. And I don't see that to be the truth at all. My sense is if you would ask the people that do love you, that they'll take you in whatever way you come. And those that need you to be that certain way or to overpromise in that way are not really having a relationship with you. They're not real people. They're actually just takers or people that are taking, and they are not really interested in a relationship or a connection. So do you really want to be that way? Do you really want to have relationships like that? And then the other side of the spectrum is doing what you promised. And there's something interesting about this because when you don't do what you promise, you are losing trust in yourself. And in order to move to where you're going into this shift, you have to trust yourself. It almost looks like a lot of the steps you don't take come from not trusting yourself. So being able to do what I say or do what I said I was going to do creates this trust in you where you start to feel like you have somebody that you can count on. And right now, it's like you can't count on yourself because you don't really follow through with what you said you were going to do. Sometimes it's an overpromise. You'll have to look at that. You'll have to be like, okay, I actually don't really want to do this. I promised a little too much. I have no interest in it. But then there are some things that you're like, I said I was going to do this. I really want to do this. And I'm going to get myself to do this because I'm a person who does what I say. And that's a new identity. And this new identity in itself creates the shift. So I am a person that I follow through on what I do. So that's why every time I make a promise, I make sure that I can follow through on it before I actually make the promise. And then I do what I promised. And this kind of balances out this Cinderella vibe that you might be having where you're more the Cinderella, like the help in people's lives rather than the queen in your own life. So like this episode is about stepping into that queen, like stepping into that up level, going from a 7 to a 10. So anything that is feeling kind of Cinderella-ish, or, help or whatever is just not for you. And there's a clue to that shift in your promising and your delivery. So pay attention to that. Like pay attention to what you're promising yourself. And listen, honestly, some of the promising even to yourself may be a little too much. You may be like, I am cutting out sugar, I am cutting out gluten, and that may be too much all at once, right? So you can't force yourself to do something that is an overpromise even to yourself. So really feeling into what is a safe promise, something that I can actually deliver, and that you're just going to be a person that is only going to promise things that you can deliver on. And sometimes you might be like, I cannot make that promise of, no gluten to myself because I am not yet ready to deliver on that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You may be ready to deliver on that a year from now, but you're just not right now. So This is a big clue, and this is going to clean up so much self battery. Like it feels like you are beating yourself up over this category of life. Like this is causing so much stress and strain on yourself. Like it has so much to do with the relationship with yourself. Like this is going to clean up the relationship with yourself. And it just looks like this takes up a lot of space in your head. And any sort of self-hatred is actually coming from what you promise and what you overpromise and what you don't do, even though you promised it. We could just got to clean it up. Like your relationship is going to be so much better, and it's about honesty. It's not about because I said it, I must do it. No, it's about being fully honest with yourself. And then you start to have this honest relationship with yourself so that there's no more blaming or getting mad at or being frustrated with. And I just see that taking up so much space in your life. Message number 7. Man, there is nothing like relationships that change our energy. It's so funny that who we hang around with is kind of where our energy stays, what we allow. So, of course, this message is about relationships, the relationships that we're in. This message is about those relationships that you specifically always show up in the same tone, either as the hero or the savior or the victim. And I'm not talking about those of you who are coaches and, directors or like leading a team. This has nothing to do with work. This is like relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, things that are the exchange is the actual relationship. It seems like there are some relationships that you automatically are either the savior or the victim. And if you are automatically in one mode, that relationship is unnatural. That relationship needs to clean up. It is a codependent relationship if we are showing up as one or the other. It was actually when I was getting the message, I was seeing my dog Molly. This weekend we were outside a lot because it was snowing and all the neighbors were out and we were sliding down our driveway. And I usually get nervous about Molly around other dogs because she loves people, but she's not really like a dog person, but she's so tough. So I was like, you know what, Nikki, you just gotta let it go. And all these dogs were coming in they were mainly boy dogs. I was gonna say they were mainly men. They were mainly male dogs and bigger than her because she's like pocket size. She's really tough, but she's small. And most of the dogs were like trying to jump on top of her and like, basically not hump her, but just like let her know who boss was. And she was like, no, thank you. And she would show her teeth and she would bark. And then these big dogs would run away because Molly was like, no, you're not the boss. Like, you're not going to ride me. And I feel like there's these relationships that you're in where people are trying to ride you, where people are trying to show up stronger than you. And then you by accident go into this like victim or kind of prey mode. And it was probably worth it at some time. It was probably like the safest way to be. Maybe you get a new boss and you realize that boss needs to be like the strong one and you need to be the prey. And like, that's the only way to get by because you were in survival mode. But this shift is about moving out of survival and going into thriving. So when we're not in survival anymore, we don't need to be prey or predator. Like we get to just be. And it seems like there are some relationships in your life that are going to need that shift. So either you get rid of them, which I hope that's not it, because nobody wants to like fully get rid of relationships, or you really take it slow with these relationships and see how you show up every time. And it could be as simple as, again, watching your words in those relationships, like being like, okay, I usually show up this way, and now I'm going to show up and I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be neutral. I'm not going to try to like overpower the person. And I'm also not going to, be meek or be this victim in the situation. I'm going to really see if I can shift, like if I can change. So it's not even about being mad at the other person or being hard on yourself, and just kind of seeing if there's place for this relationship to still exist when I am more neutral or when I'm just myself. And if the relationship cannot exist unless there is these roles, then we know that it's an unnatural relationship. I was just getting that for you to show up one way or the other is not your natural self. It's not your authentic self. It's not who you truly are. So by accident, you have these relationships that are taking up space in your life that are inauthentic, and therefore they're a drain on the power that is within you. And you need all that power, you need all that authentic to really be in your integrity to create this life, that's trying to come through. So this looks like a drain on the energy. So if we're talking about shifting the energy, up leveling the energy, this feels like it's draining the energy. And this is a hard one. This is such a tricky one. But instead of getting in your feelings about it, just being like, let's see, let's run an experiment. Let's see if I can still have dinner with this person or still have a conversation with this person and not show up as one or the other. And you might see maybe the other person really adapts super quickly and the relationship takes a turn for the best. Don't be negative about it. It could maybe change. And you just have to see it as an experiment. Because if you get into the feelings about it, it's just not going to be fun. And then for some of you, I feel like part of you, there's a gift here. Like it almost looks like you may be the savior in other people's lives because it's a gift of yours. And my feeling is that we don't want to take that away from you, but it just has to be used in places where there's an actual exchange and people are coming to you for that. So it makes me feel like you need to move it, let's say, like into your work. Or even I remember finding that I was like very dramatic and I was being dramatic in all my relationships in life. And then when I learned to write and to express myself, that's when I was like, oh, this beautiful gift of mine, it just has to go in the right place. And that's how I became a writer. And that's when I became an editor at these different publications. And there was a place for those feelings of mine. And it was a really great exchange, but it wasn't really healthy in my everyday relationships. So with this one, I feel like I don't want you to feel bad about you because I feel like there's a gift here, but it should only be at work. I'm seeing this with my daughter, Allie. She's working at a hospital now, and man, she is such a healer. It's like the poor thing, like she can't, and it's like almost like the more she works as a healer, the more she realizes that some of her relationships, she was showing up as the healer, and she doesn't want to be the healer in her relationships, but she's very grateful that she has that gift in work. But there's she gets paid for it. She uses it at work. That's what she's there for, but she's not going to use it in her relationships, and that may change some of her friendships. But then she grabs a big piece of her energy back and a big piece of her power back. And once she has more power, she can create more of the life that she wants. Message number 7. This may be a very hard one for many of us, but I don't think so hard. That's why you're here. The last message we have about being able to up-level our energy has to do with letting go and understanding that we're not doing this alone and that we are doing this with God. Like we truly are doing this with source energy, with something greater than just our human self. And this goes a little bit back to the emptying your mind, like this dependency on like your brain, your intellect. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, but it's not enough. It's not. Like, you are not as great as source energy. Like, your human self, right? Like your soul self, yes. Your human self and your brain has its limitations. There is higher vibrational energy out there that is trying to support you. And I think this message is bigger than, doing it alone, like, oh, I need to use God, but also God is trying to send you people that are trying to help you get to where you're going. And this idea of doing everything by yourself and having to earn everything and having to make everything happen. And I get it. Like we needed that for a while to just feel like we were worth it, to have some sort of confidence. But you can keep doing that. It's just, it has a ceiling. It's just going to get you so far. And this idea of knowing that I can't force everything and that I need to leave space for God. Like I truly need to leave space for God to be able to do what it's doing. That's really more important than actually like trying to figure every single thing out yourself. And this feels like specifically like you might be trying to find your next move. You might be trying to find your next strategy, your next structure, your next steps. And what I'm getting more than having to do it on your own, but also like, not feeling like you're totally sitting back and you're being super passive. It just feels like do everything else that you're meant to do. like all these things, like, sit in silence, empty up your mind, like journal, like do those things. I know it feels like you're not doing anything by doing that. Like you're not taking any action steps, you're not making anything happen. But this is the space that God needs to be able to come through, because the space that I'm talking about is within you. Like you are a vessel that wants to have more expression for your soul. Your soul wants to be able to take up more space in your body. But when we close down because of all these things that we talked about today, there's just not enough space for the soul to sit in and express itself. And the soul is God, right? Like you are a part of God and God is trying to come through. So all of these other things that we talked about that don't look like masculine strategy, like things to do and taking steps and moving forward and whatever, making things, those are the things that actually create space, that are actually going to create space within you. You want to think about it almost like your closet, right? Like you can't bring in a bunch of new clothes if you're not taking anything out. So there's this new energy trying to come in, but there's just not enough space. And we're not going to actually make the space by physically doing things. We're going to make the space energetically. So that is what the journaling, that's what the meditation, that is the energetic space that is needed. Focus more on making funnels, as I like to call it. So in my life, is there an opportunity for God to deliver things to me? For example, I want more money. Okay, are there funnels in my life where money can come through? Did I open, a new service? Did I let people know that there's this service that I have? I want love to come in my life. Awesome. Is there a funnel? Am I, I don't know, on a dating app? Am I doing something that allows that like God can really deliver that person into my life? Is there space within me? Am I getting out of my head? Am I shifting my energy? Like, am I making space? And that is truly what the divine needs. It just needs space to be able to deliver. But if I'm controlling, holding strong, really believing that I'm the only one that's doing all this stuff, that I'm all by myself, am I packing my schedule to the place that there is just like no space for anything else to come in, then yeah, that's where God cannot deliver. And then that's where you think you are God. And that's where, and things don't work out, because there is a greater source than just this, human mind, human body. And in order to take advantage of it, there needs to be some space. And that space also looks like letting go of control. So where am I controlling? That's also another great journal exercise to do. Where am I controlling? Where am I not allowing space for God in my life? Like, what are some of the things that I'm doing that don't allow this new vibration to come through? And where can I let go and trust a little bit more? All right, my friends, those were our messages for today. I really hope that you take what spoke to you, that you create this space, and that you get excited about this up level. And I think if I had to sum up all these messages, it is happening within us, number one. It's not happening outside of us. And I think it may be easier than a lot of the things that we've been doing to try to make this up level. I think that we've been probably doing very masculine steps, trying to force things to happen. And my sense is that this is a little bit easier, believe it or not. It might not feel easy because it feels so different and it's a different way of letting things come through. It's a more feminine way of letting things to come through, and we're used to controlling everything. But what if this could be very easeful, and what if all we needed to do was make space? So thanks so much today, guys, for listening. I hope that you have a journal full of notes that are for you, and may you take that and start your spiritual practice to create space for this up level. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.